We have one of Tommy's songs, a song called Siphon the Bad Blood. It's on his new upcoming solo record, Sound, was it Modern Noise?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the correct name. But yeah, we're going to let you guys hear this song or whatever. And what, the plan is to basically go through step by step everything that we did to record this song. Tommy's going to talk about his writing process and maybe touch on how he actually, came up with the ideas for this song and put things together. And so I guess we can go ahead and let him check it out, right?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Should have it queued up here. That was it. That was the complete song. As you guys will notice, it's a very straightforward, organic rock song. And we're going to go over everything. We're going to go over everything starting from the drum tuning, going into muffling techniques, tracking, the drum selection, mic selection, preamp selection, just everything and anything relative to this song. I'm also planning to talk about, I guess, techniques and other for other styles of music or whatever, other styles of drums, like techniques to use for metal and for different types of players and things like that. We'll just go over everything, and you get to come along for the ride.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna take a section of the song, so that's.
Yeah, actually, we're not going to actually track the whole song just for time purposes, but we'll do a good strong portion of the song, go over each the textures that we used for this particular recording, and how we got the tones and things like that, and then we'll expand, like I said, and go into how to get other tones and other production approaches and processes for modern rock and metal. I guess, should we move to the other room for
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
You guys ready
drum
to go?
tuning?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go
rock
look
it.
at the drum kit.
This is what it's like to be on reality TV, right?
Exactly. Awesome.
I'm gonna just sit right here.
As you can see, we have a beautiful DW set here with a killer Ludwig snare. These are some pretty industry standard pieces. And as a lot of you viewers out there will know, I say industry standard a lot or whatever. It's definitely one of the things I've learned. There's some things that are the standard for a reason, and I've just from years and years of trial and error, I've determined that a lot of the standard stuff is a lot of the stuff that you want to start with when learning to record. I really feel like when you start with standards, you can get a really good. You can get the sounds that you're accustomed to hearing, all your life or whatever, a lot quicker. And I think that helps you develop your ear. That helps you develop your engineering skills quicker without develop any bad habits in terms of dialing up, tuning drums, dialing up guitar tones, dialing up your mix, production editing, things of that nature. But what I'm going to start with today, obviously, I'm going to go through each drum or whatever, and I'll primarily focus on how we tune the drums to get the sounds that we used for Tommy's record, which is basically just a really natural, just big rock drum sound. And then I'll also talk about, some alternate tuning and muffling methods to get some different sounds, like say if you're going to do a modern metal record or something in that nature. But yeah, I'll just dig into it. I guess we'll start with the snare drum. Actually, before I get into that or whatever, like I've got some notes here. I actually want to talk about, before you actually start a project or whatever, or actually start tuning the drums and miking the drums and so forth. You want to, like, as a producer, I feel it's important to try to get an idea of what the client wants sonically, like what kind of drum sound they would like to have. And normally, what I do is I just outright ask the client, hey, what kind of drum sound would you like? A lot of clients try to describe what kind of sound they would like, but oftentimes descriptive words, people translate descriptive words for tones and things differently. So what I like to try to do is get a reference, like another professionally recorded reference to kind of give me an audio idea of what they want their record to sound like. I'm a big fan of records sounding like, I like a really produced, clean and crisp record, but I'm a big fan of records sounding like the band on their very best day, not overproduced, not underproduced. Some clients want a more produced product. Some clients want a less produced product, more organic. So I like to try to find that information out. That'll let us know where we need to go with drum tunings and mufflings and drum head selections and so forth. But like I said, I like to try to get the client to tell me or to give me an example of what a recording that kind of give me an idea what they would like the kick drum to sound like, the toms, the snare, that kind of thing. And oftentimes it's just one record. You know, oftentimes the client's like, hey, I really like the drums on this record, and that'll kind of let me know what I need to do to get those sounds for the client. You know, in Tommy's case, I guess.
Yeah, this project, we actually had a good friend of mine, Will Goodyear, which was the first drummer of Between the Buried and Me. He played drums on the record, and his sound, he's a phenomenal rock drummer, and I really wanted somebody that had they were super natural with their playing, and I didn't want to tell them exactly what to do, and his sound alone, without being in a studio, was just exactly what I wanted, which was just a natural drum sound. You know, I've always been drawn to drummers like Matt Cameron, and you know, just the good solid players, and you know, no tricks up their sleeves, and Will was perfect for that. And you know, I just wanted the drums to sound like drums. I think a lot of records nowadays don't sound like drums, you know, and that was a big point for me, and Will nailed it, and I think, you know, we definitely will show how we achieve that today. This kit sounds killer, and yeah, I think it'll be very easy to get the tones we had in the studio.
Yeah, I think what was really important for Tommy, you know, like when, you know, in terms of, you know, it's more about with his project was selecting the drummer for the project.
Yeah.
It's a solo album, and Tommy, you know, obviously he's going to play drums here today, and obviously he could have done the drums on the record, but you know, Will he's a professional, you know, he's trained, you know, in percussion, and he's got great dynamics, things like that, which, you know, is really essential when recording, you know, analog drums.
Because you don't recommend playing drums by yourself when you record, correct?
No, yeah. Normally, like, you know, you usually want to you know, have somebody to jam along with, or some pre-recorded backing tracks or something of that nature, or whatever. Just so the dynamics are appropriate for the song or whatever. There's one thing I forgot to do. I need to do the drum tuning. I need to mute the overheads for the audio.
I can go do that.
Okay, gotcha. Actually, I need to open the tracking session. Should I just do that real quick? Yeah. And then, yeah. That way everyone at home can hear everything clearly. Let me close this session out and just open the tracking session. Oh, sit down. Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. And then I'm going to just arm the recording for the floor tom, the snare.
So it's only live a red light's on, right?
Kick drum.
Oh, I guess.
Awesome. I do believe that's all I need to do. This gave me an opportunity to get some water.
Take two.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I guess,
Tune it up.
yeah, I was talking about, you know, talking to the clients to find out what kind of sound they want. Like I said, and that helps me determine, you know, what kind of drum sound. In Tommy's case, like I said, he wanted a really just natural, you know, a drummer playing a kit type of sound, you know, and obviously he was, for this particular record, in this particular song, there's more of a rock vibe. So he wanted a, you know, more of a rock and roll kind of drum sound. You know, a big kick, a big fat snare, big toms, that kind of thing. And like I said, luckily Will had a kit that was perfect for that. That kind of sound, and you know, it was pretty much, you know, he came in the studio and everything was pretty much tuned in the ballpark for the sound already. But basically, we've got, I think, the heads on this kit that we used for Tommy's record, and you know, obviously, you know, I think as far as drum tones, the most of the drum sound, in my opinion, comes from the actual drum head itself and the actual, you know, the way the drum is hit by the player. You know, people they talk a lot about what type of shells and things like that they that, you know, what type of wood and all that stuff, and that does affect the tone, you know, to a good amount. But most of the tone is in the head, so I mean, you can change heads and radically change the tone of the drum or whatever.
What heads do you have on? What heads do you have on there today? What do you prefer?
These are some really standard heads that we chose for rock and metal for that matter. But I'm using the Remo Emperor heads. These are coated Emperors. These are actually some of my favorite drum heads for the toms and also the snare. You don't have to do as much muffling. They're a little warmer sounding, which I think big and warm was kind of a vibe that was appropriate for Tommy's record and song. This particular song, I'm using a Remo Power Sonic kick drum head, and it comes from the factory with some muffling, which is really cool because out of the box it gives you a really just controlled big kick drum sound. You can get a good resonant tone without having a lot of overtone and ring and so forth. And I guess the camera's getting a good close-up, but we have this little extra muffling piece. So it reduces the amount of muffling that you would need to put inside the kick drum for the type of tone that we were going for on this particular recording. The snare head, the snare head that we have on here is actually an Emperor Renaissance. This is the first time I've actually used this head here, and I'm digging it. It's similar to the Emperor, but it's got a little like a darker quality, I think. Which actually works well since we're using a metal snare drum, which is naturally brighter than a wood snare drum. But yeah, so this is kind of an educational situation for me here. But yeah, like I said, I'll go through each drum or whatever, and I'll show you my technique for tuning, and I'll go over my technique for muffling. A lot of people. There's a big trend for with to not muffle your drums now, and some of the most desired drum sounds throughout history. There's been muffling involved. I mean, as many of you guys know, in the past, a lot of the old vintage drums, they come with muffles built in. So a lot of the vintagey sounds, the rock, the way drums sounded, in the 70s, 70s and 80s, there was some muffling involved, and now a lot of people rely on EQ and compression and things like that. But to me, I like some of the time-honored traditions of muffling, the drums, and to get the drums sounding more the way you want them to sound acoustically, and then just try to capture that as opposed to doing a lot of processing and EQing and things of that nature in the computer. So
when you for the non-drummers that are watching online, what do you mean by muffling? How do you?
The muffling, like I said, there's a lot of products on the market or whatever, but basically, and I can do a demonstration here in just a minute or whatever. But basically, naturally, like when you don't use muffling on drums or the drum head itself doesn't come with any muffling, you get a really naturally open sustaining note, but the drum produces overtones. A series of pitches. There's a fundamental pitch or whatever, but it also produces a lot of ring. A lot of people, associate it with ring. So I think, anybody who's familiar with drums knows what it sounds like. The Metallica Saint Anger record, the snare drum is an idea. It's a good example of what a snare drum sounds like when there's like no muffling. And yeah. And sometimes a little bit of that is desired. A lot of people, some people like it, but I personally, usually you want. Just the pure percussion and the pure fundamental pitch from the actual, tom and drum itself. So I usually prefer a little bit of muffling. I actually use this is just high density foam, like weather stripping that you can get from like a Home Depot or a Lowe's hardware store or something like that. You can get a roll for a couple of bucks, and this is something that. I used to work at a music store, and we sold a product specifically for drums that was this same material. And I remember, because I used to record out in my parents' basement, I remember my dad having a roll of this on the wall, and I was like, man, this is the same stuff I just spent $10 for, for to do two toms. So, I've been using this for, 15 years, 20 years probably, to muffle my drums. There are a lot of products on the market like moon gels, things of that nature. that work just the same. It's a similar type of thing. They have studio rings. They're like drum head material that you lay on the drums that actually to kill the muffling. Like strangely, the Remo Power Sonic kick drum head has this exact material from the factory on the drum. Yeah, and it's it's part of the actual muffling. And as you guys know, there's a lot of other heads on the market. The Evans EMAD is really popular industry, popular kick drum head. You have and it comes with a foam ring for muffling. You have Aquarius Super Kick 2 for the kick drum that has or 1 and 2 that has a felt piece of muffling or whatever. That was a really traditional muffling technique to use felt on the kick drum. But this is just this is what I use typically for my muffling. It's really controllable. It sticks. It's like adhesive. You can use it on the top and bottom, so you can get the kind of the overtones out of room mics and things like that also. And these don't come off, to my experience, as easily as say some of the Moon Gels and things like the Moon Gel. If you try to use it on the bottom, it's going to come off. Things of that nature. But a lot of people use there's a time-honored tradition of using duct tape. You see that all the time, even still to this day. People take duct tape and like do all kinds of weird things. And I've seen people duct tape foam and tampons and just crazy stuff like that. All over their drums to just get the ring out. But the overall goal is to get the overtones out, get more of the fundamental pitch. And like I said, with a little practice, you kind of get an idea for how much muffling you should use for desired sounds. Different heads require different amounts of muffling, that kind of thing. So
when you're starting to tune your kit, what's the first step? Where do you go first?
The first thing you want to do, like I said, obviously, the drum head selection is essential. You talk to your client, find out what kind of sound they want. Try to listen to it, and then with experience, I've been able to listen to records and tell what kind of heads will yield the type of sounds that they're going for usually. Just because I've worked over 500 records, recorded tons of different drum kits. But the first thing I want to do is select the proper heads that it's all an educated guess at first, really. But pick the heads that you think are going to work, put them on the kit. The first thing to do is actually seat the head or whatever and get the head stretched in. Just like with guitar strings, if you're a guitar player out there or a bass player stuff, you have to put this, when you put new strings on, you have to stretch them or they're going to go out of tune. Same thing happens with drum heads or whatever. So you really want them to stay in tune as you're tracking the drums.